Hi, this is Dr. Gloria Frost of the University of St. Thomas. In this lecture, I'm going to give you a brief overview of utilitarianism, which is one of the major ethical theories in philosophy. I'm going to be focusing on the views of one of the most important utilitarian philosophers, John Stuart Mill. Mill was one of the most influential English-speaking philosophers of the 19th century, and his theory of ethics is still widely studied today. Mill's utilitarianism is a straightforward and simple theory with two main elements. Utilitarianism is a theory both about what is of ultimate value or importance in life, and it provides a criteria for judging whether any action is morally right or morally wrong. According to Mill, happiness or pleasure is that which is of highest importance in life. Pleasure is what makes our lives valuable. Mill believed that the reason why we choose anything is either because it is pleasurable in itself or because it will lead to pleasure at some future time. For example, you might choose to get a painful shot now because you believe in the future it will lead to more overall pleasure by sparing you from a disease. A common objection in Mill's own time was that utilitarianism conceives of human beings as if they were swine. Swine and other lower types of animals live their lives focused on the pleasures of food, sex, sleep, and play. But aren't human beings capable of much more than this? Shouldn't we aim for something higher than a life of pleasure? In response to these questions, Mill explains that by pleasure he doesn't just have in mind the physical pleasures which we experience through our senses. He also means to include intellectual and emotional pleasures, such as the intellectual satisfaction a doctor feels at discovering a cure to an illness, or the exhilaration a reader feels when captivated by a great novel. In fact, Mill says that intellectual pleasures have higher quality or value than sense pleasures. Given that pleasure is that which is of highest value in human life, Mill believes that the goal of our actions should always be promoting the greatest possible happiness or pleasure. Each individual action which we perform can be judged as morally right or morally wrong based on whether it promotes or detracts from happiness. It is important to recognize that the happiness which we are supposed to maximize in our actions is not our own happiness. The happiness we should aim to achieve is the happiness of everyone. We should not give any special preference to our own happiness or our family's or friends' happiness. Everyone's happiness counts equally in Mill's view. The greatest sum total of happiness is what we should always try to be maximizing through our actions. Utilitarianism is a form of consequentialism. A consequentialist theory is a theory in which the morality of an action is determined by its consequences, or put otherwise, what makes an action right or wrong are the real effects it has in the world. Internal states of the agent, such as the agent's motive or intention, do not matter to assessing whether the agent's action was morally good or morally bad. Mill's contemporaries raised the difficulty of how one could practically live by his utilitarian theory. Oftentimes in real life, we have to make a moral decision in a split second. We don't have time to weigh all of the potential consequences of our action or to consider every single person's happiness. Mill responded to this problem by noting that over time, humanity as a whole has reflected on a lot of different types of actions and the consequences they lead to. Based on this thinking about actions and their consequences over human history, human beings and their societies have adopted some general rules so that not everyone has to weigh all of the consequences of his or her actions all of the time. We can use these general rules as guides. Some of the rules which Mill has in mind here are basic rules like do not steal, do not cheat, do not lie, do not murder, or intentionally harm people. In general, these basic moral rules are guides to how we can maximize happiness for everyone. Mill, however, thought that none of these rules were unbreakable. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations in which breaking a standard moral rule will promote the greatest happiness for the greatest number. One can imagine an extreme situation in which telling a lie or even killing one person will save the lives of many people. Utilitarianism maintains that in these situations we should do the acts which go against ordinary moral rules if it's clear that such acts would promote the greatest happiness. According to utilitarianism, the greatest happiness for everyone is more important than the rights of individuals. And any action can be morally justified if it leads to the greatest possible happiness.